Hey girl, hey! And welcome to season 2 of With a Gay Twist. We are a bi-weekly podcast hosted by two homosexuals who talk about news and politics, but with a gay twist. I'm Mason Dixon, and Zach, I got a question for you. Is it true when you were born the doctor turned around and slapped your mother?
It is true. And I'm Zach, and I don't know about you, Miss Kitty, but I feel so much yummier. I say that I actually don't feel very yummy. As you can probably tell, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I am going to be giving you full Kathleen Turner realness.
I really prefer to think of your voice right now as an evening with Delilah.
Delilah, love someone tonight. Yes.
And on today's podcast, we'll be talking about all the things that we've missed since we were on our break. Because if you didn't catch the last episode, we took a little siesta for the holidays. So we haven't been with you for a minute.
And I can't believe how much has happened in 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
So we've got a lot to catch up on.
We do. I mean, I've been gone for about 8 weeks because I had some stuff done to my face. I got some reconstruction, some corrective surgery done on my nose.
And Mama, you look snatched for the gods.
Snatched. We say that there is pretty
Literally
much
no
no
change.
to what you see. It was all internal repair. But yeah. So Zach, how have you been?
I have been doing pretty well, other than trying to get over this cold. But it has been a wonderful holiday season, and I cannot believe we are starting season 2. It's mind-blowing that we are here, and I'm so glad that we are here.
I know it's a little surreal. I'm gonna be honest.
It is. So shall we dive into the things we missed over the last couple months?
Yeah, let's. So what we're going to do right now, folks, for those of you that have tuned in, is we're going to pretty much just run down things that we've missed since we have been off the air. And so, yeah, let's jump right into it, Zach.
Okay. So, first of all, Trump announces his re-election campaign. Shocker.
I could never have imagined. Special counsel was selected as well for his or the investigation into his mishandling of documents.
Yep, Jack Smith.
Following the raid of, yes.
Can't wait to see what happens with that. The courts decided that Lindsey Graham must testify in front of a grand jury about his call to the Secretary of State in Georgia over the election. And he's been putting that off for a long time, but the judge finally came down and said, nope, you got to go testify.
And I'm having a vision, Zach. I'm getting a sixth sense here. I see the 5th popping up in my head.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It will be coming up a lot.
I think he might just have a stutter throughout that entire appearance in court. It's going to be peppered with the 5th.
Yep.
There unfortunately was also another attack on our community with Club Q.
Yes, it was. And then after that, we had some pretty fabulous news within the community, and that was our very own Jinx Monsoon is heading to Broadway to play the role of Mama Morton in Chicago, which is going to be great.
In their Broadway debut, which I will say it's been a long time coming, honey.
Yes, indeed.
Then Disney censored Black Panther. They excluded a lesbian kiss.
The shortest, tiniest little peck that wasn't even lip to lip. But my God, even that was too much. Making me crazy. The World Cup was held, and despite having some major human rights offenses and conflicts, the world sort of celebrated the World Cup, even though it took literal slave labor to make it happen.
Yep. And there were a lot of controversies with the World Cup beyond that as well, related to teams not being able to wear pride flags on their jerseys or as part of their uniform.
Yep.
And there was actually a call in the, believe it was in Britain, right? It was in England's Parliament, that a member of Parliament called on the Prime Minister to make a formal declaration and to support their team in wearing pride flags on their uniform during World Cup.
Yeah.
It was a very emotional speech and call to action in Parliament. Then SOTUS gives Congress access to Trump's tax records.
Yes, which have now since been released, and we now know that there were periods where he paid very little in taxes, some years zero in taxes, as we've sort of known him to do previously. But these were his taxes for the last 6 years while he was president.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Claiming the years that he was in presidency, claiming huge amounts of income. Oh, and we also found out that he did not donate any of his salary.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Our girl Shangela, made it to the finals of Dancing with the Stars.
Go, girl, girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is Yi running for president with Milo as campaign manager?
Apparently, I mean, Kanye, also now known as Yi, even though it's Kanye, but we're supposed to say Yi. I don't understand. But yeah, apparently.
It's a reference to God.
Oh, it is? Okay, great. Yeah, so apparently he's going to be running for president. He asked Trump to be his vice president, which pissed him the hell off. And yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos is apparently going to be his campaign manager. Who the hell knows? But all that even happened at this big fancy dinner where Kanye brought Nick Fuentes, who is a known Nazi, to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. So yeah, Trump dining with literal Nazis.
I can't see what could possibly go wrong with that campaign.
Me either.
And Trump is losing besties left and right. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Kanye, no longer a bestie, is a political opponent now. DeSantis, the golden child for quite a while, no longer a bestie, is now a political opponent. Yeah, it's getting rough.
Getting rough over there.
Oath keepers, multiple oath keepers have been found guilty of seditious conspiracy.
Yes, that's right. And all of that was just in November. November was a busy month.
That was in like even just part of November. Like that
Yeah.
was 2.5 weeks of November.
Yeah. Lots going on. Now, as we move into December, South Carolina will now become the first primary, which is going to be a big shift, moving from New Hampshire to South Carolina, which I think is going to be a great move for the Dems. It's going to be it's very more of a symbolic gesture because, well, it's symbolic in what in terms of the impact that it's going to have. So because it's not really symbolic, but it's going to have real life impact because South Carolina is a much more diverse state. It looks much more like the electorate does than New Hampshire does. So it's also going to be really good for Biden come next year. Just FYI.
Well, and at this point, he has not stated that he is going to be running as incumbent.
Correct.
He is currently vacationing with his family, pretty much all of them, in St. Croix, which is a traditional, it's an annual trip that they take.
Yeah.
They are typically always seeing him and the now First Lady, Dr. Biden. typically they're taking a picture from the easternmost point in the United States in the Virgin Islands on St. Croix for the first sunrise of the new year. So this is a very traditional thing, but apparently all the hotels on St. Croix are filled up according to the locals. So there's some other stuff going on within the Biden family
Well,
right now.
he has said that he is spending the holidays talking with his family about a decision.
Yes. Yeah. So very, very interesting. And then another big point for the Dems is that Akeem Jeffries is now head of the Dems.
Yes.
For the head of minority in the House.
Yes. The House Minority Leader, Keem Jeffries, is going to be a great move. Domestic terrorists were shut down 3 power stations in Moore County, North Carolina. And this did receive a good bit of attention because you had, I believe it was 80,000 people who were without power. The bit of the story that was not really getting out there was they were doing it trying to sabotage a drag show. So this was an act of domestic terrorism to stop a drag show, and 80,000 people went without power because of it.
Mind you, this is not something new. These domestic terrorist acts to disrupt or completely prohibit drag story hours or drag shows in general have been happening throughout the year, thanks to the rise in whatever hate you want to prescribe to it, right? But I think that this was probably the largest scale attack, as far as like it impacted more than just the immediate venue and those that were participating. Like this was a area wide, trying to hide it, trying to not be called out for your homophobic and hate crime ways.
Yeah.
Talking about hateful ways, Iran actually abolished its morality police after months of protest as well.
Yeah, the protests in Iran have been incredible. They've been so inspiring to see women and girls take to the streets and just say, hell no, we are not putting up with this anymore.
And not just streets, girls in schools.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it speaks volumes when the minors get involved in such a massive way. I mean, there were schools where the head of state's photo was thrown on the ground and they were jumping on it. I mean, like, there were huge movements done by children.
Yeah. It was very, very, very powerful. The Supreme Court heard a case from a website designer who did not want to make a website for a gay marriage. And so gay marriage is back at the Supreme Court again. If you'll remember the cake baker, Masterpiece Bakery, that case, the Supreme Court did not take that decision and apply that to all future cases. They only ruled on just that case specifically. They did not create a precedent for others. This, however, could create that precedent, so we'll have to watch and see what happens with that.
So actually, let's hold on to that point because we're going to talk about something else that happened since we've been away, and it directly applies to what the Supreme Court did and how that influenced what was done. So let's take a pin in that.
Pin in that.
Then we had the Trump Organization was found guilty on 17 counts of tax fraud in New York State.
Sadly, not Trump himself, but the organization.
The organization.
Yes, that's true. Indonesia is banning sex outside of marriage, so that's going to be fun.
Sorry, all you closeted Republicans that like to go to Southeast Asia. You're going to have to find another country. Sorry about it. Cinema. Now, this can go either way for me. Senator Sinema has decided to leave the Democratic Party.
That's true. She's leaving the Democratic Party. She's becoming an independent. This was announced right after the final results of the Senate were determined. So we're still technically 51-49 in the Senate because Kirsten Sinema is still keeping all of her appointments, her committee appointments. So she is still going to caucus with the Dems, sort of like Bernie Sanders does, because Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat, he's an independent. So we technically lost a Democrat, but I mean, she was always up in the air. Her and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, the two of them were always very unreliable votes. So now it's just even more confirmed and official to be unreliable.
Yeah, I feel like this was just a sidestep of the issue for Sinema.
Yeah.
To be honest, instead of just saying, yeah, no, I'm a Republican, instead of just fully flipping,
Yeah.
she was like, that's going to be career suicide for me for right now, and I really want to keep this paycheck,
Yeah.
this cushy-ass job where I don't have to do much. So
she's going to do one of those buy now Republican leader.
Yeah.
Which is funny considering that she is the first bisexual member of Congress. Also, Trump's request to have a special master was officially dismissed by a federal judge. So, sorry, Charlie. No special master for you.
Trump also wants to terminate the Constitution to be reinstated.
Yep. He put that on social media.
Yeah, he's all kinds of trying to fuck up the federal everything. It's like I can't even think of a word.
And speaking of fucking up the federal everything, Marjorie Taylor Greene said that had she planned the January 6th insurrection, it would have been armed and they would have won.
Oh, wait, wasn't it armed? And didn't they still lose?
It wasn't as armed to the teeth as she would have made it. She's such
I'm just saying. Yeah. DeSantis announces grand jury to investigate vaccines in Florida.
Great. That's great.
Fucking tool.
The January 6th committee finally wrapped up all of their congressional acts, and in their final meeting in front of the public, they referred to the Department of Justice criminal charges for Trump. It was 4 charges in total: insurrection, defrauding the public, obstructing an official proceeding, and also one other charge, which escapes me at this time. But yeah, 4 charges now officially being referred to the DOJ. Pretty historic.
Oh, the other one was conspiracy to make false statements to Congress.
Yes, that's it.
Witness tampering. And then Trump's tax returns were released to the House.
The Ways and Means
and
Committee.
Measures.
Ways and
Committee,
Means, yeah.
Ways and Means, thank you.
Yeah, and so that's
Weights and
how we
Measures.
eventually got them, was because Ways and Means then released them to the public. So thank you, Ways and Means. George Santos, who is the Republican, just recently elected Republican for Long Island, it's so hard to really put into one succinct sentence all the things that's been happening with him. He's now being
For real.
investigated under state and federal charges for fraud because he has lied so much about his resume. He said he went to certain colleges when he didn't. He said he worked for Citibank and Goldman Sachs, and they're like, yeah, we ain't never heard of him.
Goldman Sachs said, I believe it was on social media, they're like, yeah, who's he?
Who is he? Who is he? Yeah, he's claimed to be Jewish, but he's not. He claimed that he's gay, but he's not. But he is, but he was, but he's not now, but he was, but he will be.
I'm not gay no more.
He's also black, and he's also... And he said, no, I never said I was a Jew. I always said I was Jew-ish. I mean, this fool... There's some good shit going down. So that's George Santos. Well, stay tuned for more drama with him.
Yeah, because I'm sure he's going to be popping up again.
Yeah.
A little international publicity for America, and not in a good way. So in Italy, they recently had a carnival, and I cannot pronounce the name of the city or the name of the carnival. So we'll excuse that. But in this carnival is known for its floats. It's known for its very political, social commentary, very artistic floats. So less Mardi Gras, more like a moving museum. Okay.
Love it.
So yeah, very much that. But in the carnival, there was a float on America, and America was represented as a black Statue of Liberty, bent on one knee, struggling under chains.
I love it.
I mean, I think that that's probably the best image to represent America at this moment.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. And wrapping up, a UN-backed peace summit is being planned at the end of February between Russia and Ukraine, but it has not been finalized yet. Ukraine has said that they will not negotiate with Russia until Russia faces a war crimes tribunal. So that still has to get worked out. We have yet to hear back from The Hague. CC, we'll put a pin in that one.
Yeah, because Russia is still upping their troops right now by using conscripts and also inmates.
Yeah.
And then finally, the co-leader of the failed plot to kidnap Michigan's governor. This happened quite a bit ago,
a couple years
to be
ago.
honest. Yeah. But we are just now finally getting to the sentencing part of this. So one of the co-leaders was actually sentenced to 16 years in prison, which I think was a fabulous statement.
It is a fabulous statement. Sorry, Gretchen Whitmer. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that just because you wanted people to wear masks.
Yes. Sorry that you were a target for doing your goddamn job.
Yes. And that's what happened in December. It's been a lot.
It's been a time. It has been, like, every time you think that you're catching your breath, you get something else thrown at your face.
More is happening. More is happening. And that doesn't even go over, sadly, all of the deaths that have happened since we last were on the air. Mason, can we tell us, this is our In Memoriam segment.
Yeah, so 2022 was a horrible year when it came to the people that we lost. We lost a shit ton of celebrities.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, just astronomical amount. But those that we lost since we were last on the air: Kirstie Alley, Stephen Twitch Boss, Irina Cara from Flashdance and fame, Jason David Frank, who was the original Green and White Ranger from Power Rangers, Gallagher, Terry Hall, who was a ska icon, Maxie Jazz, Bob McGrath, who was a notable performer on Sesame Street, Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac, Vivian Westwood just today,
hours ago,
and Georgia Holt,
also known as
Cher's mother. And as noble as all the other ones are, and Jason David Frank has a very special place in my heart as my childhood icon, the reason why I got my ear pierced, the whole 9 yards.
He was a big thing for my husband as well.
This is now a crack in the Cher Foundation, people. We need to be on standby. We need to be on alert. Like, someone needs to put her in a freaking, like, glass box with high oxygen content.
I tell you what, though, if Cher sticks around for as long as her mother did, then we're still got a good another 20, 25 years of Cher.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Miss Georgia
she was up there in years.
She was 96.
Yeah, I was thinking she was mid-90s.
Yeah.
She was up there.
Yeah, I mean,
And if we get 96 years of Cher, I will be happy with that. I will say, all right, it's time. We can give her back.
96 years. Yep. 96 years of Cher and 75 farewell tours.
Yes. Exactly. So, Mason, we sort of, that was a lot that's happened in the last 8-ish weeks. But I want you to take a moment while we go on a little break And when we come back, I want you to be able to tell me, what do you think was the biggest story in 2022 in these two categories, U.S. news and international news? What was the biggest story of those? Also, listeners, you take a moment to think of the same thing, and we will be right back after this commercial break. Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, Zach. You know how social media can be a bit
Mercurial and leaning towards Nazi sympathizing?
I was thinking more ratchet and as unstable as kimchi wearing heels.
Oh,
Well, now there's a way for folks to follow us without the socias.
That is true. You can now sign up for our newsletter directly on our website.
Just head over to withagaytwist.com and look for the sign up on the homepage.
You'll be alerted when we have new episodes, blog posts, and other great updates.
Sign up today, Blanche.
Right on top of that, Rose.
And we're back. So we were just all thinking about the biggest news stories of 2022. What were the ones that really hit you hard? What do you think really stood out in the year? U.S. and international news. So we're going to dive right in. Zach, let's start with international. Let's go international first, and then we'll finish up with home.
Yeah. To me, international news, biggest story of 2022 is Russia invading Ukraine. It happened early in 2022. I believe it was February. And it has been the dominant international news story of the year and continues to be so. It will be the thing that marks 2022.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did 3 episodes on Russia invading Ukraine.
Yep.
And it has just dominated the international scene. Yeah, it's been just update after update after horrible fucking update.
Yeah.
And I would have to say, for me, related to that, and this is a recent story too, was the release of Brittany Griner. So Brittany Griner, very notable WNBA player, was detained, arrested, and eventually charged in Russia. When she arrived there, as she was going through their version of customs, they found vape cartridges of cannabis oil, which is illegal in Russia. And so they arrested her immediately, detained her. Apparently she had to sign forms or documents in Russian that she did not understand. She was forced to sign those. That was part of her appeal after she was originally found guilty of illegally importing drugs with criminal intent. Mind you, she originally said that the cartridges were packed by accident. She didn't deny that they were hers. She's also part of the queer community. She is African American. She's a U.S. citizen. She was there to participate in a European league. It was a European Premier Basketball League game that she had previously gone to in 2015 as well.
Yeah.
And so her partner, her wife, I should say, really lobbied hard, and we finally were able to, in the U.S., Biden was finally able to negotiate her release. It was a 1-for-1 trade for a Russian who was sentenced to 25 years here in the U.S. He is a very notable arms dealer, and it was a big deal that we released him, that we used him as trade. What was really big with this particular trade, though, is that a ex-Marine by the name of Paul, I want to make sure that I get his last name right here, Paul Whelan, who his family has been going really hard. He's been in prison in Russia since 2008. He's actually in a labor camp, and he was charged with espionage. back in 2018, they kind of felt a little hopeless after Brittany Griner was released and traded for, because they've been going real hard for his release. So it was kind of a big controversy when Brittany was released, but still an extremely happy moment.
Yeah, I mean, we still were able to get an American citizen back home, which is the most important thing. Yeah. In terms of biggest story, domestic side of things, I think the other thing that will mark 2022 as a significant year was the fall of Roe. Not only the actual incident of Roe falling, but then the ripples of that, which can be seen right up until the midterms that we just had. Democrats did exceedingly well in the midterms, and a lot of polling suggests that it was because of the fall of Roe. It motivated the shit out of people to get out there and vote.
It definitely did. Yeah, I think that would probably be top two for me, for U.S. stories. Mine was the recent passage of the Respect for Marriage Act. Huge for our community.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting about this is that it now protects, on the federal level, our right to marry and not be discriminated against when we go to another state. So think of it in my situation. I went from New York, where I was married and marriage was legal, went to Florida, which did not protect same-sex marriage prior to the Obergefell ruling, right? So with everything that happened after the fall of Roe, marriage was really up in the air. So that could have been a real situation. Well, now the Respect for Marriage Act, it now says that states are not able to not recognize, it forces states to recognize and provide full faith and credit to any public act, record, or judicial proceeding of any other state pertaining to marriage between two individuals on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin of those individuals.
Yeah, it essentially expands and codifies the full faith and credit clause of the 14th Amendment. It now, just instead of it being sort of, you could read between the lines of it being in there, it's like, no, we're explicitly putting it in there, because we've always had the full faith and credit clause of the 14th Amendment to be our backup, and it was one of the arguments that was used before the Supreme Court when arguing for Obergefell and such. But it had to sort of be read into it. Now it's just explicitly stating it.
Well, but also explicit on the basis of sex.
Right, exactly, yes.
So there's also that addition in there, is that before it was just marriage in general was open when it came to how Obergefell was ruled and everything prior to that, underneath that full faith and credit clause. But now at the federal level, we have explicitly that what marriage is. Marriage is between two individuals, and it doesn't matter the sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin of those individuals, because following the fall of Roe, Clarence, who is a black man in an interracial marriage, I just want to throw this out there,
Clarence Thomas
said that interracial marriage and same-sex marriage could be up in the air.
Yeah, Justice Thomas definitely has a penchant for making himself look very badly, and he does so swimmingly when he himself is in an interracial marriage, and yet he thinks that should be up for judges to decide. So the fact that now the Respect for Marriage Act has codified both same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, which is just shocking to think that these things weren't already settled. We now have them put into law, signed by the president. These things are codified now. Whew. Perhaps we can move on now.
And what's really funny is that I believe interracial marriage was actually settled case law. I was not able to find the case, but there were cases brought before at least state Supreme Courts, if not SCOTUS, on interracial marriage during Jim Crow.
Well, yes,
during
you've
the
got
50s.
Loving v. Virginia, which was
Yep.
decided. However, that was based on a that's more of a judicial law based on a court decision as opposed to law emanating from the legislature.
Correct. So,
So
that
now
is
that's
case
where
law
it's-
versus true black letter law.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, what another interesting part of this law is the way that it was written to define what marriage is and what marriage isn't. So, in the first section of this law, it states, or sorry, not the first section, it's technically the second section. Talks about couples. Then you move into the full faith and credit, where it explicitly says between two individuals. When you move into section 7, paragraph B, it talks about no federal recognition for or of polygamous marriages. Nothing in this act or any amendment made by this act shall be construed to require or authorize federal recognition of marriages between more than two individuals, which I think this is fucked up. I know many of people that are in polyamorous relationships that would love to get married. And I just think that's fucked up that this was explicitly included in that. It also, in section 6, going back to what you were talking about before, talks about goods and services. So in this, it does state that, consistent with the First Amendment, that nonprofit religious organizations, which includes church, mosques, synagogues, temples, non-denominational ministries, all the traditionally profit religious organizations that you can think of, but also faith-based social agencies. This is where you start looking at adoption and foster care people, religious educational institutions, nonprofit entities whose sole purpose is to study, practice, or the advancement of religion, that it will not require those individuals to provide services, accommodations, advantages, or basically anything to solidify, validate, or celebrate a marriage that goes against their religious beliefs. So there's a loophole here for that case that we were just talking about, that the Supreme Court went, where they didn't want to set precedent, because what they were talking about is a for-profit business, for-profit service, not related to religious exemption, right? They were trying to claim religious exemption based on personal beliefs, not based on organizational affiliation with a religious body.
Yeah. We shall see how that goes.
So it's a complicated law, y'all. It is not really that clear cut
Yeah.
in a lot of instances, and it's still kind of bigoted.
Yeah, it is. But that was 2022, and we now turn the page and look to 2023 and see what we can expect from this new Congress, which is just getting installed today or tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll be sworn in.
January 3rd.
Yep, we finally have not final numbers on this the House, because we're still waiting for a few things, but we generally have an idea of what this new Congress is going to look like. The Senate is going to be we actually gained a seat, so it will be 51-49 in the Senate, with Dems having 51, Republicans having 49. That being said, within those Democratic seats, it's actually 48 Democrats and 3 independents. But they do caucus with the Dems, so that's why we say 51-49.
Well, but you can also really consider Sanders as a Dem. I mean, as much as he says that he's an independent, I don't think he will ever vote with a Republican. at this point.
Yeah, very rarely, yeah. The House, the GOP will control the House. It will be by a tiny sliver of a margin, however. We're looking at around 10 seats is how big the lead will be. This is a very tiny majority, and it creates a problem for people like Kevin McCarthy who are looking to run for the Speaker's seat, because he's going to have to get everyone to try to agree with him and wrangle all of these cows roaming around in the field, all wanting to do their own thing, because you've got very established, very kind of centrist establishment Republicans, and then you've got the crazies, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts, the Matt Gaetz, and such. Like, so he somehow has to wrangle all these people, because if he wants to get something passed, he needs all of their votes. He can't afford to cleave some from the herd and only use a certain portion of them.
And the thing about this is that he's been having a lot of closed door conversations with these different factions and individuals, and he is having to make some devil deals right now. He really is having to make some, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours when the time comes, in order to get this appointment. There have been calls for other speakers within the Republican Party, notably from the more radical side of the Conservative Party. He is not as popular as what he really wants right now.
Yeah, and it's really going to make his time as Speaker of the House very difficult, because the House got a lot of things they want to do. Some things are going to be really good, and there's some bipartisan moves that we're all looking forward to happening, and some things that are basically going to be their revenge fantasy after having, the last year where Democrats have held, or the last 2 years where Democrats have had the lead, and they did things like create this January 6th committee to investigate January 6th, which they hated and wanted no part of. Now it's going to be their turn, and they're just going to enact their revenge. And they're probably going to be doing the most asinine things, like subpoenaing Hunter Biden and looking into Hunter Biden's laptop. The biggest crock of shit.
They just want to see his dick pics again.
They do. They're drooling. They're drooling for some dick pics. Like, honey, it's called Pornhub. Just
right.
I mean, Tumblr, for Pete's sake.
Now, here's the interesting thing about that idea, and Zach probably knows a little bit more when it comes to the inner workings of Congress than I do. I'm more big picture. Zach kind of gets into the details a little bit. And so the January 6th committee functioned and rolled the way it did because, except for Liz, the Republican Party said, fuck you, we're not even...
except for Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. They were the two Republicans who sat on there.
Sorry. Yep. I forget about Adam because he wasn't as, at least on the parts that I watched, he was not as vocal as Liz. Liz was always like, we're going to go to
she was the co-chair.
Representative Cheney. Yes. Yeah. I mean, she was very notable, very in your face
but
with
Adam
everything.
Kinzinger was quite cute, though.
I mean, very easy on the eyes.
Very easy on the eyes.
But the idea that they only had 2 Republicans as a part of that committee, if the House, now the new House, enacts a committee to investigate the January 6th subcommittee, what's the requirement of having Dems on that committee? Is there a requirement to have it split?
So typically whenever these committees are created, both parties have the opportunity to place members on the committee. It was just the Republicans who said, we want nothing to do with it. We want no part of it. And so they chose to not do it. And it was only those two Republicans who just volunteered themselves to say,
Right.
I'll do it, pick me. And so they were selected. So same thing, if they start doing all this chicanery, here's going to be the question is, what's the new House Minority Leader going to do if they do create some of these crazy committees like investigating Hunter Biden's laptop? Do we say we're going to have nothing to do with that because it's nothing but bullshit, so we're not going to have any Dems on there? Or do we say, no, we're going to put Dems on there, we're going to be half the people that's on there, just so that you cannot use this as a free publicity time on the podium to go out there and spread all the horse shit. At least now, when you get your 5 minutes to ask a question to a witness, we're going to get 5 minutes to talk about whatever we want to talk about too.
And that's exactly what I would do. And I hope that the minority leader, Mr. Jeffries, does it.
Yeah.
Please make sure that there is full representation of a Dem on all these subcommittees that they do, especially for the ones that are these revenge committees. The other question is, how much traction is Marjorie Taylor Greene's fantasy of having Biden impeached? How much traction is her submissions?
Yeah, it's not going to happen because both she
acts.
and Lauren Boebert have both said on their first day in power they're going to submit articles of impeachment. It's going to go nowhere. It's going to go nowhere. It's definitely never going to come up for a vote. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's just going to die.
I mean,
McCarthy's not going to let it happen. He's dumb, but he's not that dumb.
I don't know. I'm thinking the, not saying that he's dumb, right? I as much as I wish I could say that all fucking Republicans were dumb, and on some level I think they are very ignorant and out of touch with the times and just hateful people. But I don't think that he is that type of stupid, right? But at the same time, he's making these devil deals. And when he goes to Lauren Boebert and he goes to Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's the only thing that they're going to have to pull on him of, you want me to vote for you? You want me to bring the people that are in my little part of the fence over to you? This is what you have to do for me. You have to allow this to go to a vote.
He's going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place for sure. For sure.
So it gonna be super interesting to see what happens going forward, but for now we just have to wait back and hold our breaths.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But
well, our final little bit of news today is to talk about a little bit about some housekeeping of what's happening on our side of the fence over here.
there have been some changes.
There have been some changes due to the fact that there's now a Nazi sympathizer and white supremacist supporter leading Twitter. I have decided to back down from Twitter, and it's been 2 weeks now that since I've done this, and it's been difficult because I feel that need to want to get on there and check to see what's happening and put my voice out there and be part of the national conversation about things, and I've been missing that. But I just the whole thing of like when that idea of when you are not paying for something, someone's paying for you. So like, oh, I'm not paying for access to Twitter, so therefore this is free. Like, oh, no, like I'm the one that's being sold. My tweets are being out there circulated to gain more traction. My information is being sold to someone else for ads and such. So I am the product, and I just don't want to be part of a system that is currently being led by someone who goes out there and is just spreading misinformation about COVID, about Nancy Pelosi's husband, and about white supremacy and Nazism, and I don't want to be part of that any longer. So
And
I'm
a
off
fucking
Twitter.
man-child.
He is a fucking man-child. He is.
Oh, you said something bad about me, so I'm going to ban you.
Yeah, banning journalists, and then deciding policy at Twitter based on polls that he's going to run, and it's just it's ridiculous. So I'm off Twitter, and funny enough, before the end of the year, we had already decided that we were going to be creating a newsletter from our website in order to be able to keep in touch with folks. And this is just kismet now. So we want to invite you right now. Just head over to our website, withthegaytwist.com, and right there on the home page, you will see the little box where you can sign up for our newsletter. You just put in your name and your email address, and that's it. And you're going to get updates from us about when we have new episodes, when we have new blog posts, new updates that are coming. And it's going to be a great way for you to keep in touch with us, but for also us to be able to keep in touch with you. So please head over to our website and sign up for our newsletter. It's free, and we promise to not bombard you. You will not be getting daily emails from us.
You will not be getting daily emails from us, girl. We love you, but I ain't got the time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
We are a 2-person show here, people. And another thing, just to throw that out there for any of our listeners that are interested, is that we are looking to expand the With the Gay Twist family.
Yes, we are.
You can also find out information about joining the team. We're looking for someone to head up our Queer Person in History, our Queer History Lessons segment. We're also looking for a co-host for our entertainment section, which would be with our wonderful, wonderful host, Zach. And then also looking for someone, this hasn't been posted yet, but we will be looking for somebody to head up our specifically drag race segment, to not head it up but co-host it with me, where we'll be doing reviews of the new season of Drag Race that comes up and actually launches this coming week.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, this week. So you can go to our website, and under the About Us section, you will find a Join Us page where you can see the descriptions of what each of those roles look like and how to submit your audition tape. So please go do that.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Well, as we wrap up here, it is time for our favorite segment of every episode.
It is.
And that is, I don't know her. That's right. It's the segment where we highlight a queer person in history that we think you ought to know. And Zach, who are you teaching us about today?
Mason, today I'm going to be teaching you about Willem Arondeus. He is a magnificent person who I had never heard of before, but I recently saw his name on a little meme and looked him up, and he's just too cool for school. So he is a Dutch artist who was around during World War II. In 1942, he began an underground publication and where he was putting out information about they're very anti-Nazi. And then he later merged with another publication, and that's how he met Gerrit van der Veen. The two of them were this like fierce little gay resistance. And what they would do is they were specializing in forging identity cards. So they were forging all these documents, and along with another lesbian resistant named Frida Belafonte, they got together and they were a huge success in creating these forgeries for these identity cards, so people couldn't necessarily determine if you were Jewish or not, or if you were gay or not. So they were making these forged identity cards. The problem was there was the original copies of everyone's identity cards were being held in the original cards were being held in the Municipal Office of Population Registration. So when people would get these fake cards, they could easily just be double checked by going and looking in the office to seeing what their real card looked like. And then, of course, you would get in trouble for having a forged card. So they were like, well, what are we going to do about that? How about we destroy the registration office?
Damn.
So their attack, which took place on the 27th of March, 1943, was partially successful. They managed to destroy 800,000 identity cards, which in total was only about 15% of the records, but still huge. They also were able to retrieve about 600 blank cards and about 50,000 dollars of their currency. It wasn't dollars.
Right.
The building was blown up in the middle of the night. They were, however, later betrayed, sadly, and arrested. He was arrested on the 1st of April, 1943, but he refused to give up the rest of his team. But they found his notebook where he had notes, and it included the other people in the group in there, sadly. A couple months later in June, he was tried and sentenced to death, along with 13 other men who participated. 2 of the group received clemency, but the others were all executed on the 1st of July. Arondeus pled guilty and took full blame for everything, and because he took all of the blame, it's because of that 2 of the other people who were also indicted in this, there were 2 young doctors, they were spared from execution and given custodial sentences instead. And before his execution, he was very, very out and proud. He wanted it known that he was a homosexual. And his final words before being executed were, "Let it be known that homosexuals are not cowards." Hot damn. So when we end every episode here on With a Gay Twist.
Every episode.
With the same phrase. And when we say it today, it's going to mean something different now, having this story in my head, that you being out there is already such a bold statement. You cannot be an out queer person and be called a coward. And for one Mr. Willem Arondeus, he definitely was not one. So that is the queer person history that we think you ought to know.
That's fabulous. I'm flabbergasted by the lesson today. Oh my gosh. Well, ending on that high note, that does it for us here on the podcast this week. Thank you so much for tuning in for this extra special first episode of our second season.
Season 2!
Season 2, bitch! You can find more information about the podcast, including our catalog of queer people in history and how you can join our team on our website, www.withagaytwist.com. While you're there, make sure to sign up for our newsletter on the homepage so we can keep in contact with you and you with us. You can also email us at withagaytwist@gmail.com. Make sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast app so other fabulous queens such as yourself can find us. And finally, if you can, girl, please support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/withagaytwist. And always, please remember, being queer is political. Later.
Bye, girl.